guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today, I have a very exciting video. It's a Valentine's Day video. I'm gonna be painting a BJD. Woo! Finally! If you guys saw my last video, then you would know that I have a lot of BJDs and a lot of them are just butt-ass naked. So we needs to paint some, okay? This is a collaboration with some other talented YouTube doll artists. The only requirement was that we had to paint a BJD and it had to be in some sort of a Valentine's Day theme. We have Harley's Dollhouse, Blurred Colors Art, Moonlight Jewel, Cloud Dolls, Steffu Doll, and I Can Do That DIY. I think everybody did a fantastic job and they're all linked down in the description box for your viewing pleasure. For my base doll, I knew I wanted to use one of my pink BJDs. It just seemed like a very opportune time to use one. And I have two of them. So I have one that is Handy Dandy Degenerate and Digidolls Succubus, and a Dandelion Moon Lupi. So I was leaning towards the demon, but I realized I've been doing a lot of demons lately. I guess I kind of like identify with them, okay? And so I was like, you know what? Let's chill. Let's not do another demon. Let's do my Lupi. So what are we doing? For this year, I decided I wanted to do a very Valentine's themed girl. So she's giving hearts, she's giving red, she's giving pink. The doll actually came with this really cool artwork that I assume is by Frappzilla. I don't know. But it has all of the dolls that were released with Lupi, and it's like a tea party, and it's just very, very cute. And you know, I love a good tea party. We love a good tea party. I'm going to a tea party soon. It's just very like me right now. Okay, so we're doing a Valentine's themed girl who's going to a tea party. This is Lupi. Aesthetically, we love her. Her face is like so pretty, by the way. And I like the body as well. I have a little bit of issues with certain things, which we'll get into later. Typically when I start BJDs, I start with a wig. So we are putting saran wrap around her head to protect it, and I'm wrapping some rubber bands to hold that in place. And then we're gonna take some stretchy fabric and stretch that as tight as I can around her head, and then wrap another rubber band around there. Lupi has those big beautiful ears, so we gotta cut some holes where they are and then just wrap a second rubber band around the head just to make sure that the wig cap is as tight as it can be. I did about 4 coats of Elmer's glue on her head, letting it dry in between coats, and then I sketched in where I wanted her hairline to start, took the wig cap off her head, and cut the wig cap into the shape that I sketched in. I honestly think I'm kind of booty at wig caps, but like, they do the job, so it's whatever. Off camera, I painted the wig cap pink. This is not the most necessary step, but it just makes the hair blend in a little bit better if you paint the wig cap whatever color you're going to be using. For hair, I'm using one of my favorite yarns. I love these like tightly twirled yarns that comb out very, very like wavy and kind of poofy. They're like my favorite. So I'm just cutting them and I'm prepping the yarn how I normally do. I'm tying it around this thing and then I'm going to be brushing it out with a cap brush. I just think the hair looks so nice and natural and wavy. I created wefts and I'm gluing these onto the wig cap. I'm doing this like sort of a row by row type thing. So I'm doing one row on the bottom, then going slightly above it, and doing rows going all around the wig cap on the head. Once I get to the very top, I'm going to be gluing a wig weft. My brain farted. I'm gluing a weft backwards and then flipping it. Moving to the phase up, so I spray the doll 3 times with Mr. Super Clear, waiting 15 minutes between each spray and wearing a respirator mask, and then we start painting. And by this, I mean like literally painting. So with BJDs, you can't really get away as much with using pencils. So when I typically do fashion dolls, I do a lot of like sketching in with pencils. But with BJDs, since they're made with resin, the pencils look very fuzzy on the resin, which isn't cute. So we're going straight in with paint, and just keep like a Q-tip and water handy if you're using watercolor paint like I am, so you can just wipe it away. I definitely recommend using watercolor paint because it just leaves you room to mess up, and you can just wipe it away and redo it. It's not a big deal. I like using pastels to do the waterline for BJDs because, again, pencil just looks weird. I like blushing pink skin with pink. Who would have thought? I just like blushing everything with pink, to be honest. But I'm putting that literally all over the place, on her cheeks, on her nose, chin, forehead, and on the inside of her ears. I think her ears look so nice blushed. This doll has one of the prettiest lip sculpts that I've ever seen. It's just really pouty, and I mean that in the way where it's not just like she has big lips. Like, they look like they're literally pouting. It's so cute. I applied an initial layer of red pastel on her lips and cleaned it up with a kneaded eraser. The same pastel that I used on her lips, I'm going to be using on her cheeks, and I'm putting that in the very middle with a spiky brush so that she can look like she has a very naturally rosy look. After all of the pinks and reds are laid down, I start going in with a brown just to emphasize the shadows on her face, so around her lip corners, her nostrils, on her cupid's bow, underneath her chin, all that great stuff. I love blue tones on pink skin tones. It just looks so good. So I'm putting that above her eyes, on her brow bone, underneath her eyes, on her chin, on the outer portion of her eyes, on her ears, literally all over the place. It might look extreme now, I always say this, but once I spray it, it just dulls down quite a bit. It's time for the veins. I got a new blue pencil and I don't like it as much, and it just bums me out. I gotta find like the exact shade of blue that I was using. It's slightly darker than this one. But anyway, so, I mean, it being really light means I can press down a little bit harder. But I'm just putting this all around her eyes, on her forehead, in the inside of her ears. I'm doing branch-like pencil mark so that it looks like she has veins. And I love this effect. It looks nice. Try it out. To create a highlight, I'm taking white pan pastel and I'm putting that on her brow bone, her inner corner, her nostrils. I think that's it. To emphasize the pout of her lips, I took some red pan pastel and a Q-tip and I tapped that in the very middle of her mouth, and it just makes her look bitten and pouty, and I loves it. So I know I was literally just like a minute ago saying don't use pencils on BJDs, and like here I am using a pencil, but hear me out, sis. So I feel like for highlights pencils work because these don't need to be extremely defined. I feel like for the initial lines that you put down for the like dark lines on the eyelid, those need to be pretty defined, so you kind of have to use paint. But for these highlights, they can be like a little bit less defined, and I end up just blending them out with a Q-tip or a Q-tip at the ends, and it just kind of fuzzes them out and fades them and blends them in, and it looks nice. But you wouldn't really do that with your initial line of an eyelid. It just doesn't make sense, if that makes sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. A while back, I watched a Xanthi, I don't know if I'm saying that right, video, and she did lip wrinkles in 3 stages, and I says, that looks nice, so I'm gonna try it. So lately I've been doing that. I've been doing a medium tone first, just lines going down the lips, and then a darker tone, and then a lighter tone last. I decided to go with pink brows to go with her pink hair, so I did pink pastels for her brows. Hey! I put a darker pencil on top of that original lid line that I sketched on. I'm not doing this all over the lid line. I'm mainly concentrating it on the outer and the inner portion, just to deepen it up a little bit in those areas. So I'm not completely coloring it in. I go over some of those highlight lines that I laid down with pencil with white watercolor. Something I like doing with BJDs is tightlining them, so I take a black paint and I just go over where her lashes are gonna go. I just feel like it makes the lashes look nicer and blend it in and just fuller. I flicked out and added to her cat eye with a rose gold colored pencil. Okay, so I'm not even gonna lie, I really like how these lashes turned out, and I feel like I developed a little bit of a method. So what I basically did was I took my brush and I dipped it like in water, and then I dipped it in the watercolor paint, and then I did a little swipe on my hand, and then I just swipe on the eye, and I feel like it gave me just a very fine line, because I'm going in and kind of wiping off the brush and then applying it. I'm just doing like maybe like 2 or 3 lashes at a time and then repeating the whole process. Typically, I always do like a test lash on my hand before I go onto the eye, but I found that cleaning it off in between really gave me clean lashes. I wanted her to have like a subtle Valentine's Day aspect to her face up, so I just put hearts on her cheeks. The last paint step that I do for face ups is I put little white dots on her corners of her lips, on her cheeks, and on her nose. The final step is I take some Tommy gloss and I put that on her lips and her waterline. Now for lashes, so I got these pairs off Amazon and I think they work really well for BJDs. I cut them, or I cut a little bit off the inner corner, and I'll put a link to these in the description box if you guys are looking for BJD lashes. But I cut them in half, and then I take tacky glue and I put that down, and then I put the lash on top of it. And I really like using tacky glue for this because it's sticky, so it just really holds the lash. I don't have to like keep boosting it up, which I've had to do when I've used Elmer's glue in the past. And it also dries very, very clear. I applied a final layer of tacky glue just to hold everything in place, and this is how they turned out. I really like these lashes. I just feel like they're like nice and subtle, and they don't cover up all the paintwork that I put down, so I recommend them. I was trying to figure out what size eye she has, and I had one that was too big and one that was too small, so I decided it would probably be this size because they're like kind of in the middle. This eye mold, by the way, is not ideal for making resin eyes if you're using UV resin because it's not fully transparent. Like, you can get away with it, but it's not like super ideal. They just end up a little bit sticky, so I keep having to pop them under the UV lamp, and then they become like okay. But I did a squeeze of resin and 2 drops of my white ink, spun it all together, put it in the mold, and then I took a toothpick and I just like kind of swirled it slowly around in there so that if there's any air bubbles, it'll pop them. And I threw them underneath my UV lamp for about like, I don't know, like 2 minutes-ish. After that's all nice and dry, I'm taking epoxy sculpt. I'm going to be creating the eye texture with this. So I took a little circle of it, put it into the eye base, and smushed it with a chopstick. I have a dot tool that I'm going to be making the pupil of the eye with, so I just shove that down into the middle of the eye. For the eye texture, I'm taking a needle and I'm basically just creating like broken up lines that are radiating out from the pupil. I found with this method that you can either be very neat with it. I've seen people who do that and it looks really nice, and people who are a little bit more chaotic with it and have like a lot of texture going on. I probably lean more towards that boat, and that also looks really nice. So whichever floats your boat, I guess, whichever option. After that dries, I fill in all the eyes with pastel. I'm doing a red pair, and then a brown pair, and a gray pair, and on each of these pairs, I like to fill in the pupil with something a little bit different than the base shade. So like for the red, I used black. For the brown, I think I also used black, and then for the gray, I was feeling crazy, and I used yellow. And I don't know if I like how it turned out, but that's what I did. To emphasize the texture, I'm using alcohol ink plus resin. So I'm using a shade corresponding with the color. So like for the red, I'm using a dark red, and I'm just spinning it all together. You want to get this pretty thin because it can look very, like that looks very, very dark. But we're applying it very thinly on the eye, and it just kind of like sinks into the texture that we have and looks kind of nice. After I'm done with the alcohol and resin, I am putting that underneath the UV lamp. I don't like to add a bunch of stuff with each layer. Like I like to do layers very separately so that just the different details aren't mixing together and just kind of muddying up each one. For the pupil, we're using gems. I'm just putting that into the pupil hole that I added. Specifically, you want to use point back gems and not flat back gems, because if you use flat back gems, it's just going to look like a mirror and not give you that nice kind of sparkly gem quality. But after I put that underneath the UV lamp, I did a layer of resin and glitter, put that underneath the UV lamp, and then did the final stage of doming the resin eyes with just a little drop of resin on top. Unfortunately, literally none of these eyes came out to my satisfaction. The red ones were the most promising, but unfortunately they had a giant bubble where the pupil was and it just looked so bad. So I ended up making another pair off camera. I made a purple pair and I really love how these ones turned out. I feel like whenever with resin eyes, if I like can't get them right, I just make a purple pair and I love them. The weird thing with this doll is that for some reason the resin wasn't holding my sticky tack when I was like putting the eyes in or trying to. I bought 2 different brands and none of them worked, and then I found this random little bit of Faber-Castell sticky tack inside of a BJD box, tried that, and that worked. We're gonna be restringing her. She became unstrung when I took her head off, and yeah, she doesn't have an S-hook. She has like this little ring thing. It's kind of interesting. I have a bunch of different sizes of elastic, so I took the one that was inside of her already and I found some that I thought matched the best, and we're going to be restringing her. But before we do that, we're going to be hot glue sueding her because she needs it. She needs it really bad. So hot glue sueding is like a really easy process. You just put some hot glue and then take some thick paper and just swipe it, and it's hot glue sueded, and it gives the joints a little bit of a cushion so that they can hold poses a little bit better. I've talked about the joint system of this doll in the past and how I just kind of don't like it. So it has a lock-in system for the knees and also the feet, and you're gonna see that a little bit in a minute. I just find as I worked with this doll to paint it through this that I think that the ridges that are on the inside of the knee are not deep enough. So the little thing that's jutting out doesn't completely click into them. So I found that the knees were clicking in and out and in and out. When you hot glue suede it, it does help it. So if you have this doll, I definitely recommend doing that. This is what the ankles look like, by the way. They have less of an issue with clicking in and out, but they still also have an issue of clicking in and out. This is how she is after she's done being restrung, and she's just leaps and bounds better. As you can see, the knee, which was literally could do none of this, where it's holding a pose, can now do like midpoints and stuff with the sueding. Also the arm can like go to midpoints and doesn't just like flip up and down. I also wanted to show you guys that I'm dumb and I forgot to put her S-hook back on her hand. So whoopsie daisies. Onto the clothes. So I wanted her to have a dress that you would wear at a tea party, and I specifically wanted her to have kind of like a sweetheart off the shoulder neckline. So I drafted a pattern. I went through and hemmed everything with Fabri-Tac glue. I like hemming things with Fabri-Tac glue because it's really fast and it also looks really neat. After that, I sew the sides of the top together, good side to good side. For that off the shoulder look, I took a strip of fabric that I hemmed and I gather stitched the ends of it. I ended up cutting the strip of fabric in half so that I would have a gather stitch side for one side of the top and then a gather stitch side for the other side of the top that I'm going to be sewing in place at the middle and also at the back of the top. This is the bottom skirt of the dress, so I gather stitched some gold tulle and sewed that to the bottom, and then I'm going to be taking this Fabri-Tac glue and gluing some ribbon at the bottom as well, just as decoration. I also sewed where I tied a little bow and I glued that at the very top of the top. With a bead, I sewed that into the middle of the bow. We're almost done with this dress, so I'm gather stitching the top of the skirt. There it is all gathered. Wow, wee woo wah. I'm going to be sewing the top to the bottom of the dress. After that's sewn into place, I sewed up the back of the skirt of the dress. This is the finished dress. Honestly, I'd totally wear this to a tea party. Like, I wish I could. I wish I had a big version. Now, I love a stylish apron, so we're gonna make a heart shape apron. I cut out a heart and then I gather stitched some of the tulle that I used at the very bottom of the dress. I sewed that to the apron good side to good side. I decided that the finished product was just too small and kind of weird shaped, so I made another one and I think it's way better. So bye shitty heart apron, doink. For the straps, I took some of that ribbon that I used at the bottom of the dress and I just sewed it in place. By the way, I'm using clear thread here, and I just feel like in the past like 2 projects I discovered clear thread and it's changed my life. It's so convenient. We love a stocking, so I'm taking this gold fishnet and I am sewing this burgundy ruffle to the top. I fold it in half and sew it up the back. I decided she needed a beret because, like, who doesn't, honestly? And these are like pretty easy to make. You guys see that pink like strip? I wanted to stiffen up the bottom, but it's totally unnecessary, so I ended up like taking it off at the end, so just a heads up, ignore that. But I hemmed the very bottom of the beret. I sewed the circle parts of the braid together, good side to good side, on the outer portion. Then we just gotta flip it. With that strip of fabric that I hemmed at the beginning, I'm sewing that to the opening of the hat, and I'm gonna have like a little bit of excess fabric, so I trim that down and then sew those 2 panels together. This is how it looks on her head. It's so cute. You can't tell me this is not the cutest. But I took a bead, I sewed that at the very top, and then I decorated the bottom of the beret with some of that gold ribbon I've been using all throughout this. So the last BJD that I painted was my Fairyland mini feed like lingerie doll, and I bought her these shoes and I figured, you know what, let's try to replicate them with Worbla, but like probably not exactly because I'm not like a professional at this. I made a pattern and then I heated up the pieces of Worbla. I took the 2 side pieces first and I wrapped them around the foot. I take that front piece and I also mold that to the very top of the foot. I think I had to trim it down a little bit, but that's really easy when the Worbla is all heated up. This is the bottom of the shoe, or the sole, so I heat it up and then I press it to the bottom and I just like pinch the ends together so they form together. In order to take the shoes off, I cut the middle of the back of the shoe. This is how she looks, but I want to perfect her shape a little bit, so I'm taking epoxy sculpt and I'm just making her like a little bit pointier and smoother in certain areas. After that dried, I sanded it down and painted the shoe red. I wanted the bottom of the shoe to have more of like a sole look to it, so I heated up a piece of Worbla and I molded it to the bottom of the shoe. I painted that red and then put gold over top of it. Now to decorate. So I have this like kind of, I don't know, beigey goldy bow. I hot glued that, and then I took some tacky glue, put a little half bead in place. This is how they turned out. Are they as good as the shoes that I bought? No, but they're okay. I think they like do the job. Off camera, I made her a simple gold bead necklace. On to blushing the body. So I feel like not many people blush their BJD bodies, and I kind of get it. Like, I imagine it's a lot to clean if you sell it and somebody doesn't want the body blushing on it, but I just feel obligated. So I'm using all the same tones that I use in her face to blush her body. So with that, I thought she was done, but my stupid butt strung the doll wrong, so she became unstrung when I put her head back on, and I had to restring her again, and then I also strung her wrong again and had to string her with like a smaller elastic. It's kind of a long story, but I didn't realize that I strung her wrong until I was editing this video, so I'm gonna restring her again after this video, but she's back to not being the most stable gal in the world. We love that for her. But yeah, with that, she is basically done, guys. I think that this is honestly, like, this is what she looks like with her head back on. I think this is one of the prettiest dolls that I've ever painted. And I think that aesthetically, it kind of makes up for her frustrating joints. I also found a teeny tiny tea set on Amazon, which I bought for this doll, and she has the cup, and there was also a teapot, and I dropped it and it broke, so that's great. But anyway, here she is. We love her. We stan. We love a Valentine's Day beach. If you guys like her, let me know in the comments down below. If you guys don't like her, let me know that. Maybe not. You know what? If you don't like her, you know, if it's constructive criticism, that's cool. But yeah, so happy Valentine's Day. Happy Galentine's Day. Happy Anti-Valentine's Day. Whatever you're celebrating, I love that for you. Definitely check out the other people in this collaboration. They're all linked down in the description box. Like this video if you like this video. Subscribe, makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!
Peeps.